Hey guys, this is Miss Shepherd. I hope everybody is doing well, or doing at least the best that we can be during these strange times. So I'm creating some videos for you guys to go over the topics that we're covering here in school. I just want to make sure everybody understands what you're reading. I know it can be hard without having a teacher there to help you. So I hope these videos will explain some of the things that you're reading about. So I'm going to start with chapter 12, section 1, which is called the Indus Valley Civilization. And in this section, we focused on the topic of geography. So the question I have here on this slide is, what geographic features affected early India? So if you look at the map, you can see some of the features we're going to talk about here in a moment. We've got some mountain ranges. We have the Hindu Kush here, the Himalayas here. A couple of rivers that we want to mention: the Indus River, the Ganges River. We have the Indian Ocean here, the Bay of Bengal over here. This whole area here is India. And then a couple of major cities that you've read about: Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. All right, so let's take a look at some stuff in your textbook. I'm going to read some selections to you, so feel free to follow along with me. I'm going to be on page 378 to start. All right, so when we go through this section, we want to focus on a couple of major ideas here, these key ideas, main ideas. So first, the first civilization of the Indian subcontinent developed along the Indus River. And then second, the Indus Valley civilization had large, well-planned cities, a strong government, and an extensive trade network. I also want to bring to your attention, and I didn't have you really look at this with your assignment because I shortened it down a little bit, but I want you to know that we don't really understand a lot of specifics about the Indus Valley. And that's because we can't read their writing. So things like politics, what kind of government they had, religion, did they worship gods, which gods did they worship, things like that are still a mystery to us today, and may remain so until we crack the code that is their writing system. All right, so for much of history, the region of South Asia was known simply as India. So what we mean by that is, looking back here at the map, that really like this whole area was just called India. But today it's actually divided up into many different countries. So we're going to look at that closer here in a minute. It says the towering Himalayas and Hindu Kush ranges separate the Indian subcontinent from the rest of Asia. Now, from our studies already, you guys know that that could be both a positive and a negative thing for civilizations. So if I ask you, why would that be positive? What would you say? Yeah, so if you said it provides natural defense, you're absolutely correct. Now, if we look at a negative, what comes to mind? Yeah, if you said something like it would make travel and trade difficult, you're spot on. All right, another major geographic feature are the monsoons. The monsoons influence the climate of India. They bring rains. These winds bring rains, right, that help them to know when to grow crops. Now, according to your book, you know, these rains are not completely reliable, right? The weather never is. So if the monsoons came on time when the farmers were expecting, it was great for them. But if they came late, or if they had a time of year where it didn't come at all, then the crops would die. And then, of course, the consequence of that is not having enough food, so people may starve. So one of the things that the Indus Valley civilization did was to produce extra grain for times such as this, that they stored in a granary. All right, so let's talk about these countries that make up South Asia today. So join me in the text on page 378. I'm going to read in red where it says the Indian subcontinent. It says, geographers divide the continent of Asia into regions. One of those regions is South Asia. It looks like a huge triangle jutting out into the Indian Ocean. Today, it includes the countries of India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Nepal, and Bhutan. India is by far the biggest country in the region. For much of its history, all of South Asia was known simply as India. It is still called the Indian subcontinent. A subcontinent is a large landmass that is set apart from the rest of the continent. The Indian subcontinent stretches almost 2,000 miles from north to south. In some places, it is nearly as wide from east to west. The subcontinent is separated from the rest of Asia by the towering Himalayas and Hindu Kush, two mountain ranges to the north. All right, so quick recap of that. Our two major river systems. All right, the Indus River flows through Pakistan, so we're kind of relating that back to our list of countries here. And then the Ganges River flows across northern India, and then we looked at the location of the Himalaya Mountains already on that map that's on 379. All right, so let's talk about what it was like for the people living in the Indus Valley. We talk about time period. Farming began in the Indus River system around 7000 BC. A couple of major crops, wheat and barley, and settlements started to emerge because farmers could grow a surplus of these crops. They had extra food to support a growing population. So let's look at that on page 380. At the top of the page in red, it says an advanced civilization. Farmers began growing crops in hills near the Indus River system around 7000 BC. With a steady food supply, the population grew. After 3000 BC, cities began to develop on the broad plains of the Indus Valley. By about 2500 BC, these cities were the centers of the advanced Indus Valley civilization. However, by around 1700 BC, the civilization had largely disappeared. All right, so as settlements emerged, as cities started to be built, we want to take a closer look at what were those cities like. So again, time period. By about 2500 BC, we could call their cities well planned, and the two that you read about were Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. Some evidence to support that these cities were well planned are things like irrigation channels, granaries to store surplus grain, and brick-lined sewers. So irrigation channels, remember, carry water to crops or wherever you want the water to go, and then brick-lined sewers carried waste away from the city, kept the cities clean. Their city streets were laid out in a grid pattern, which is exactly what we use today for major cities like Chicago and New York. So if you were to pull up a map of a city like Chicago, you would see that their streets are arranged in a grid pattern. It looks like a sheet of graph paper. And that makes navigation throughout the city easy. So let's take a look at some technology in the Indus Valley. So I'm on page 380 in your textbook in blue where it says technology. Indus Valley cities were well planned and organized. The people of the Indus Valley built thick walls around their cities. They also built huge raised mounds of earth and brick in their cities. During times of flooding, these mounds remained above water. Many homes in these cities had a bathroom and toilet. Wastewater from houses flowed into brick-lined sewage channels. These were the world's first citywide sewer system. A trash chute in many houses led to a bin on the street. Many of the achievements of the Indus Valley people showed an advanced knowledge of mathematics. Their cities were built with wide, straight streets in a grid pattern. The Indus Valley civilization had an advanced system of weights and measurements, using multiples of 10, like the modern metric system. So we use some accomplishments from the Indus Valley today still. If we take a look at page 381, we can see some illustrations of these. So at the very top there in the picture page, remember picture pages are important, don't ignore them. And take a look at the captions too. So the world's first dice, the oldest dice, may have come from the Indus Valley, which is interesting. So they had some kind of game with those dice. Again, we don't really know specifics about it because we can't read their writing, but it is interesting. They look really just like any set of dice that you would see today in a game like Monopoly, for example. All right, some other accomplishments for the Indus Valley. Archaeologists have also found jewelry, pottery, and stone seals. I want to talk a little bit about these seals If you look at page 381, you can see a photograph of one. The photo is the bottom left one. In the caption, it says, "These clay seals show examples of Indus Valley writing and art. They were used to stamp trade goods. The writing on each seal may be the name of the person who owned the goods." So we think, our best guess is that these stamps were used to identify the owner or like a merchant as they put them on their goods that they were used for trade. So what were they trading? Well, on 380 it tells us. In blue it says trade. The Indus Valley environment was rich in resources for trade. Indus Valley jewelers made beautiful jewelry from precious stones. Traders sold this jewelry as far away as Mesopotamia. Traders sold cotton cloth woven in the Indus Valley. They also sold teak, a valuable wood from a tree that grows in India. Indus Valley cities prospered from trade. Indus Valley traders used stone seals with writing to identify their goods. They stamped their seals on soft clay squares attached to their goods. Accurate weights and measures helped promote trade. Sumerian writers mentioned trade with people who probably came from the Indus Valley. Trade spread ideas between these two civilizations. So remember I said we really can't read that. We can't read their writing from the Indus Valley, but we can read what other civilizations wrote about them, which is another source of knowledge about the people of the Indus Valley. All right, so if I were to give you a graphic organizer like this in the classroom, and I were to ask you what were some achievements of the Indus Valley people, let's see if you can identify 4 things. So I'll give you a second here to look at page 380, 381. You don't have to write anything down. It's just kind of a self-check. Can you identify 4 things? Yeah, so as you're looking at information in your text, again, those picture pages are really going to be useful for you. And I'm going to just take all 4 of the ones that I identify from the picture page, although you could definitely find more than 4 things. So I'm going to say clay seals to identify trade goods. I am going to say sewer systems to carry waste away from the city, walls to protect the city, and then dice for entertainment. But again, there's more than 4. So if you didn't come up with the 4 that I said, that doesn't mean you're wrong. Just ask yourself, can I support this with my text? All right, so again, I really didn't have you look at this in your assignment, but I do just want to talk about it briefly. So again, scholars have been unable to decipher the writing of the Indus Valley civilization. In other words, we can't figure out what their writing means. So details about politics, religion, and history are still unknown to us. And then another mystery is why the Indus Valley civilization disappeared around 1700 BC. There are many theories about what happened to them, but we can't say definitively 100% this is why their civilization ended. If you're interested in studying more about the Indus Valley people, I encourage you to do so. So if you're interested in this and you want to know more, dive into it. You can definitely read some more in your textbook. If you want like some websites or something to look at that are interesting,